Well, it keeps telling me that I'm live, so here we go. I'm going to try and get my friend to join me quickly. Here we go. Oh, third time lucky. Come on.
Hello there, Neil. I
Hey,
think we're live. Are we live?
I think we are. We're live. We're live. We're
I
live.
don't know. I don't know what happened there. I've switched it from Wi-Fi to data, so maybe that might do the trick. It might be a bit unsettling. Maybe my end. I have no idea. Sorry about that. But
Okay, so
I'm
we're
here.
live. This is it, isn't it? Round
We're,
three.
we're live again. I can't believe it's the third one that we've done. It's amazing, isn't that? It's a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, I think it is good. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And given the weather today, I think we all need a bit of positivity.
You know, I think, well, you've obviously thought very carefully about the format of this particular live, and I think you wanted to have a discussion around change. And my goodness, hasn't the weather changed like the wind? Pardon the pun.
Yeah, it has, isn't it? It has. Did you sleep well, though?
Yes, I did. Oh, it was a lovely hot day today. And, you know, my son and I, we had a nice, lovely meal in the back garden. We've got some new garden furniture that's arrived. And so it was lovely. The sun was setting, lovely, lovely warm breeze. And I thought maybe the weather was going to be similar, but it's completely changed. And,
Yeah,
and don't things change like the wind? Pardon the pun, Neil.
yeah. And don't you find sometimes that, like I said, when it literally just changes just like that, that your mood can just come down a little bit?
Yes, it does. Do you like feel that, you know, that the weather has an impact on your you know, on how you feel about things? Because for me personally, when the sun's shining, I just feel so positive. But when it's cold, it looks like the cold somehow goes into your mind. It just kind of shuts down a little bit. You think, oh, I don't really want to do anything, or it's too cold to do anything, or something like that.
That's it. Yeah, everybody needs to run to get their pajamas, don't they?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So then, Neil, I think you've obviously got something on your mind, fellow loose man. So what's on your mind this week? Let's have a discussion.
Well, I think obviously the concept that I think we're going to be looking at today is change, and I think I think change is something that's massive.
Yeah.
And I think again, when we go back to sort of like COVID-19 and how everything's been developing, obviously that's brought about a lot of change. But I think really today, I think sort of like maybe steering away from sort of COVID-19 is just look at that word in general, isn't it? Change. You know, it's a big word. You know. Yeah. When you think of the birds that fly and they navigate, you know, and they migrate, automatically the bird will know, won't they, when the seasons are changing, that they then got to venture off to go to some other part of the world, you know, to follow that sort of migration sort of path, you know. And I think when you look at it in terms of like the birds, you know, they're very free, aren't they? They're free, you know. This is just second nature. They just go with the change.
Absolutely.
You know? And I think as human beings, I think it's something that we can all resist. And I think if we resist change too much, it can cause a bit of friction.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very important topic. I mean, it's relevant. I mean, obviously now, but obviously it's always has been a very, very important topic. And, you know, change, it's something for me personally whereby, I mean, I felt that where events in my life that have happened and they've been pretty static and there's been no change, then I tend to find that those are the times where there hasn't been much personal growth, much personal development going on from there, because it's just static, it's stable. But I tend to find that sometimes, you know, when situations force themselves onto you. Now, whether it's a result of one's karma, who knows? But when things happen to you, and certain situations, like with what's happened with, you know, with the lockdown or whatever, then it forces us in a situation where we either have a couple of options. We either go with it and make some adaptations to how we are, how we behave, maybe our values need to be reevaluated, and then the other option is that, you know, we don't do anything. But then again, the problem with not changing is that when everything else changes, or people change, and then your relationships are forced to change, or your circumstances are forced to change, then it really can be a big shock to the system. And for me, I think very much later on in my life, I've actually learned how to embrace change. But I have to say, very honestly, Neil, it wasn't something that came easy to me in my younger days. I think I resisted change. I wanted things to stay static, but then again, I didn't know at the time that I would just stay stuck in one position, like in a fixed mindset kind of situation. But now I've learned that if I embrace change, I embrace different circumstances, different things happening, then it's much better for my personal development and growth.
Yeah.
Are your thoughts similar?
Yeah, I think the thing is with it is, like I said, is like, I think sort of like just relating back to sort of previous areas of my life, and I think, yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying. You know, like I said,
yeah,
sometimes as well, it's I don't think it's something necessarily that I actually wanted to change.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes the resistance has come from the fact of that I actually had the belief that I didn't need to change. You know,
yeah.
I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything to cause this situation. Or I think sometimes I think we can all be a bit guilty of actually sort of playing the role of actually, maybe, I don't want to use a strong word like victim, but I think sometimes we can all sort of fall into that category where we can actually, and especially like you said in the younger years, and I can relate back to that sort of, say, 10, 12 years ago, that I think I would have quite happily have taken the role of saying, hey, do you know what, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. But actually, really, what I was doing was allowing my mind to self-sabotage myself.
Yes. Yes.
So again, I think that goes back to that sort of point that we made last week, is that the biggest battle I think that you can have is standing up to yourself. And I think when I look back at the types of situations I'm relating back to in my past, I should have just stood up to myself and said, hey, enough's enough. You know, you don't need to sort of have that battle with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we probably mentioned in previous lives, Neil, is that, you know, there are many things that, for whatever reason, these softer skills, they're not obviously taught in school. They're not part of the curriculum per se, but they are very, very important elements in one's life, in terms of that change. You know, change is inevitable. Yeah. And if you are to face changes, and particularly if you become more aware of things, and, you know, if one becomes more aware of their personal history and certain events, then sometimes it can be very troubling. Unless we know how to handle those thoughts and feelings in a way that it can be channeled to actually help us and help our growth, so then we can become more happier, we can actually become more productive, we can actually avoid certain behaviors that, as you said, can unwittingly self-sabotage, and that's a very common thing. And I think it's because, you know, if we don't have that underpinning kind of understanding of how to deal with essential things like change, then it can cause lots of trouble in our later lives. And I think, which is why lots of people, including myself, we you know, go through a midlife crisis, a midlife major event, where change is forced upon you. You must become aware of all these things, because you know, your relationships have changed, people have changed, your job has changed, policies change, your workplace has changed. And if you keep wanting to go back to nostalgia and when it was nice and comfortable and fuzzy, which I think is a human need, you know, we all like to gravitate back to those times where, you know, it just felt safe and fuzzy. But that is not life. Life is not like that. Life just keeps moving. There's always a momentum in life, and you have to also catch when the momentum changes or when the wind blows in a different direction. And I think that with regards to what we're all going through now, there's definitely a wind change, and we have to interpret the changes and make the adjustments as best as we can. If we can't do it ourselves, then we need to reach out, you know, either reach out to the internet
Yeah.
or reach out to somebody else who can help
Yeah.
and support. Yeah.
But I think also as well, there is, I think it's interesting again. I think maybe, I think it's something that I've learned through a bit of maturity through experiences, is that actually life creates turning points. It creates those turning points of change. So when you think about it like that, you know, friendships, family, relationships, you know, breakdowns, divorce. And one thing I think that I've said to you previously is that when you look at your friend circle, it's actually sometimes I think we can all be scared of, like, oh my God, you know, like I feel like I'm changing, you know, and I haven't seen that person for a long time. Well, actually, sometimes maybe it's about just embracing that actually some people just we play parts of each other.
Yeah.
Sometimes those people don't actually complete the whole story, you know, and when you look at it like that, is what I said, is that don't be afraid of that change, because people grow, people go at different spurts, and you may find yourself actually 2-3 years down the line actually reconnecting with that particular person or reconnecting with that type of relationship, but you've maybe needed to evolve to get to that point to appreciate what it is that you needed from that person.
That's a really interesting point, a very deep point there. I do relate to that from a personal point of view, Neil, if I'm honest with you, because I think in terms of friendships, because I've got some long-term friendships that span from university. And so, you know, when we all met when we were 18, 19 in our formative years, we were obviously very different to how we're now in our 50s. And I think sometimes one or two of my friends have found it quite difficult to adjust to the fact that I've changed hugely from those days, but also even more so after I went through a divorce 5 years ago, after I, you know, had quite significant changes in my own personal situation in employment. I moved from full-time employment to self-employment as well, and that's all change. And I think that it's been quite difficult for them to kind of keep up with those changes. But I also have to be equally sensitive to the fact that I can't really expect them to be totally on the same wavelength. That it's going to have to require a bit of a Venn diagram, like a bit of merger, so we still maintain the essence of our friendship and the bonds that still keep us strong 30 odd years later, but then obviously to have that mutual understanding that yes, I have changed, but I'm not expecting you to keep up. But then again, I want you to appreciate that I'm also somebody who has evolved. I just want you to understand that, even though you can't relate to it, but just accept it if you can. And then on the other side as well is, after going through significant changes, meeting new people and being open-minded to changing and adapting your friendship circles, you know. So I've met some fabulous, I mean, with yourself being no exception, Neil. I've only known you for a few weeks, but we like I know you for a long, long time. You know, my spiritual brother, you know, absolutely, you know, it's like, you know, meeting people like yourselves and other like-minded professional people that I've met on my last 5 years after I've gone through personal changes that I then attracted, you know, and vice versa, new friends and really, really good high-quality friends with a real depth of friendship as well, where we really understand each other and we really help and support each other. And that relationship is extremely powerful when two people know they are always evolving and they understand what evolvement you know, is, you know, what is required in evolvement, and you grow your friendship together and it's even stronger. It's amazing. And so, but then again, those former relationships, it's a bit more complicated. It's a bit more complicated.
But I think it's like, there's 2 points I want to sort of make in terms of reference to what you said, and it's like with friendships, you know, and I think maybe 20 years ago, I was kind of like maybe someone that was part of a crowd, you know, and that to me felt like normal, you know, that you were part of a crowd, you know, when you're at school, you're part of a crowd. Well, like now in my 40s, I appreciate that my friendship circle, I categorize them in the boxes. You know, if I want to go and sit with somebody that's a very quiet individual and just wants to be quite chilled, well, that's my chill time.
Yeah.
You know, if there's somebody that's quite vibrant and I fancy sort of rolling back 20 years, I'll go out with that vibrant person, you know.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately what I'm trying to say is that when you break your friendships down, and I think again, like maybe with how I look at things, is that we all serve each other in different ways. And
Yes.
and I think also as well is that if we're prepared to change, well then life will change.
Mm.
You know, again, as you said there about extending your network in terms of your friendships, you grow, you evolve because you're allowing more change to come in.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You are, and you are also being more open to more people coming into your life to enrich your life, but also for you to enrich their lives as well. And it is a bit of a balancing act, but I think also it's important to be sensitive as well, because everybody has their own tolerance to change. Some are more minded towards change. Like, for example, me, I definitely would say now at being 51, I'm definitely more minded towards changes. But if you talk to my younger self 10 years ago, I didn't want change. I had my unit, I had this, and that's all I wanted. But then I realized it was more of a fixed situation, that I wasn't allowing any, I was restricting, energy flows coming in that would actually benefit me. And I just was quite closed off in that respect. And now my situation is that what also helps me to completely adapt to change is to allow my intuition, my inner voice, my whisper, to give me messages that I must take note of. And honestly, it's so powerful. I don't know whether I mentioned this in the previous live, but there was a message that one of my best friend's name just whooshed through my consciousness. It just came through, and I thought, oh dear, that would not normally happen if something hadn't happened. There's obviously been a change of circumstance. Otherwise, that name my intuition wouldn't be screaming it. Then in the evening, when I ring him, then unfortunately he tells me that he will be made redundant after being furloughed, with the situation going on now, and very, very upset and very stressed and anxious about it. So I actually, it's very powerful, when you can be at the antithesis of change, and you feel it, and it can create a bit of tension, but you have to ride on the crest of the wave, when a wave changes and it goes up and down, and one has to be quite brave and courageous to be standing on top of that wave, because then what happens is the wave keeps moving, and it's about movement, it's about shifting. And normally me now in my midlife now, I'm thinking, well, change is good, but also constant change is the constant. So my mindset is that, constant change, where you got things always changing all the time, then that is what's regular now, so then I don't see change as being change. I just see it as a way of life, if that makes sense.
So it's almost like you're like water, you're just flowing.
Yes. I love the way you just there's me talking from many countries, and you just speak one, and you just get the point. Yeah, I need to be more succinct, actually. Well, it's one of those things. But no, absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes, the wind takes you. Sometimes the wind takes you, which is the external things, or it's your own momentum takes you, So it's kind of one or the other, or both sometimes. And it's difficult. I mean, I don't think we've got the full gamut of what's happened to all of us universally. And do you feel that more change is going to be set upon us, do you think? Do you think we all need to start getting more resilient to change?
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting because I was speaking to somebody today, and they were talking about kind of like how they felt at the very beginning of this outbreak, and then how they feel now. But interestingly enough, was when it all started, they felt very fearful. They felt like quite anxious about everything that was happening. But yet 2 months on, now they're back to normal. Now they understand their routine. Now they understand what's happening. Now they understand what could possibly be happening. But they're not feeling anxious. So you have to ask yourself the question, well, what happens to us? It's fear.
Yeah.
It's fear of the unknown.
Yes.
And I think if you just look at it quite simply like that, that is probably what stops people, what stops any of us, or at times in our lives that has stopped us from wanting to pursue something or to try to do something differently, is because the fear of the unknown. Sometimes when we go back to that concept I spoke about, that you want to be cuddled, that 80% wants to cuddle you.
Yes.
So if you look in terms of like relationships, if you look, let's say for relationships, let's stick with that point for 2 seconds. You're in a relationship that you just really know that's unhealthy. You know about it because you say about it every day.
Yeah.
You're saying about it to people. But what's stopping you from making that jump? It's the fear of actually thinking, do you know what? Maybe it could be okay.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
You're never going to know the answer. So if you come back to a concept and you're looking at it in terms of maybe I don't know, let's say for instance you've lost a dog, okay, or you've lost an animal, okay, and you're grieving, you know, and everybody's going to be grieving. It's heartfelt. It's part of the family. But maybe a year or two later you decide to get another animal. You can't hold yourself back and not give that love to somebody else again, because it's you know, you've got to evolve. You've got to move forward. You've got to allow yourself to feel those emotions again.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also, one of the NLP techniques come to mind, you know, from what you've just said there, in terms of, you know, when things happen, like, you know, unfortunately, when one's pet dog passes away or something terrible happens, but it's part of your past. But it was good at one time, but then obviously, you know, it kind of went the other way. Then with the circle of confidence is to go back and say, well, you know, say with the example of a pet dog, because they are part of the family. It's like having a child, basically, when you have a pet dog. So it's like you have to remember all the positives and how the great times that you spent, how much you had enriched that dog's life and how much the dog had also enriched you. And to celebrate those positives and to go back. And that way then, we actually, in terms of part of change and changing, is going back and accepting the great times that had happened. But then change is inevitable. So there are many dimensions to change, you know. And I find that sometimes I wish I could go back to my uni days, you know, 1918, 32 years ago now, Neil, I'm showing my age now, where we had grants and we didn't have loans and we didn't have to worry about working part-time. We just went with the flow on the crest of a wave. However, if only life was like that now. But, you know, not a worry in the world. And we went to lectures, we came out and we just had a nice time, got together. And sometimes I'm thinking, oh, God, you know, why did life have to change so radically since those days? And sometimes the old friendships, you know, we can keep those alive by remembering those positive times, but also being realistic that we're not living in those times now, but we can remember them. And we can also reflect on how much we've changed and developed. And that's part of change. You reflect back on the progression and the advancement of yourself as a human being on this planet, how far you've come, how far somebody has dealt with issues, problems, adversities, but also they've accomplished and they've done extremely well, either in spite of or whatever. And those things need to be remembered. And that's also part of embracing change, because with change, there's been one point and then there's been another one, which is where you are now. So it's about reflecting back. So that's where I see, you know, change as well. But sometimes, you know, with my old friends, my old buddies, sometimes we all wish we could just go back to that little time machine that was last week. Go back to 1988, 89, where there were none of these things that we're dealing with now. But then again, that is the time. And this is the time and space that we're in, and the more, and also it's about if we are dealing with change, and a lot of people resist. You mentioned resistance as a very, very important word there, Neil, and that resistance is because we're not used to it. It's new, but then it's very important to sit with the uncomfortable. You know, sit with the uncomfortable, and again, bit of neuro-linguistic programming. Just try to process what words are coming, what words are being spoken by your thoughts or by your intuition or by your ego. Just write it down, write everything or draw everything down, so you can confront what's troubling you, and then try to work out how you can make it better, how you can change it, how you can do that. And again, the other NLP technique, sub-modality shift, comes to mind. Yeah. This is where we ask someone to relate to a preferred modality, their visual or their smell or their taste, and imagine what that negative sensation feels like, and try and reduce it by trying to force change upon that. And that can be really powerful. So if you're seeing change as being negative, and it's like a barbed wire piece of like a ball of barbed wire, then you want to try and get rid of that. And you either visualize something else, swish it away, or if you hear a horrible squeaky sound, then try and soften the sound. And we can do that quite effectively. And that's another way of trying to deal with the change, because change can represent itself as being very sharp, too sudden, too loud, very bitter, very sour. So whatever modalities that people relate to, then those can be opportunities to do some positive work. So you tend to cope with it a lot better.
I think as well, that, like I said, listening to everything you're saying there, though, isn't it? You've got to look at it. You've got to look at it as well in terms of, sometimes you've got to think of yourself like a flower or a plant. You just got to constantly keep watering it.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
In order to grow, you've got to keep pouring that water inside that plant. And eventually things will start growing. You will start seeing something change. In terms of like the plant or the tree, leaves grow. Like I said, seeds change. You lose your leaves, but then come back the summer months. Everything changes again. And I think the thing is with it, like you're saying about the submodality shift, is that there are concepts, there are models, there are techniques that you can help to kind of like squash it down to be able to make a difference.
That's right. That's right.
I think in terms of sort of like lifestyle and just giving those simple sort of advice to people is that don't be afraid of it. Like I said, if you wake up,
just sit with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, Neil, fear. That's a very, very important word to use in the context of the discussion that we're having. I mean, fear is that something which is unknown in the future. Yeah. And that can beset all of us. I mean, like I've mentioned probably in other podcasts, on other lives rather, I didn't quite accept the fallout from the pandemic, 8 weeks ago. It's my son who had to sit me down and say, Dad, this is really serious. You can't go to London. You can't go to the gym. I thought, what are you talking about? That was a massive change for me. Then when all my contractors said we're going to have to move online, it might take 4 to 6 weeks to convert our systems. It was just amazing. I just wasn't prepared for it. And I think that we all have to now be very aware of fear and how to manage it. Now, one way that I manage fear, because I truly believe it is about the fear of the unknown in the future. We're in lockdown. What do we do? How do we manage? How do we survive? We can't even meet people. We can't even see loved ones or friends or anything. So we can't even go to work, So what do we do? So for me, the way, because of how fear is defined, the anxiety about the unknown. Well, the unknown is not here yet. The future is not here, but what's here is now, in the present moment. And then the teachings from Eckhart Tolle, from The Power of Now. Actually, I've kind of moved a few books around, and I think I have these books somewhere. Yeah, here we go. I just want to show it. The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. I mean, I bought this from Amazon a few years ago, and I do read it now and then. I've read it several times, and it just helps me to rationalize what's happening, that the fear is there, but it's not happened. Whatever you're thinking is going to happen, I'll lose my job, I'll lose my house, I'll lose my marriage, blah, blah, blah. But it's not happened yet. So therefore, deal with the here and now. Deal with how you're feeling now. Deal with your situation, your circumstances, even the hardcore things like finances or relationships. Get help, get support. You're not on your own. There's lots of information and support available. I mean, obviously, with the kinds of roles that we currently occupy, you know, being life coaches, we are instrumental in actually helping those people if they want to reach out to life coaches or therapists like us. We can help and support. But then again, there are a wide range of different avenues that people can go in. But just a way of dealing with the fear that it's not actually the situation you're imagining is not here in the present. So you're taking up a lot of present time energy where you could be doing things. You could be going for a walk. You could just be, you know, try to ease your mind a little bit. You could be making a phone call to a trusted friend just to offload a little bit. You know, you could be trying to search a directory for a counselor or for a life coach. You know, you could be using that time to write down what's happening. You know, what are you going through, rather than dealing with something that may not even happen. But it's about just trying to grip. And please, if I can ask everybody who's watching this either live or they're going to be watching as a recording, please do read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. It'll really begin to rationalize how powerful the present moment is and how we easily get away from it, where we just delve into the past and we let the past dictate how we're meant to feel now, or a future unknown with the fear. It's not even here. So regret and fear, for me, are the kind of extremes. And they take us away from regret about the past, fear about the future, and they take us away from the beauty and the opportunity of the present moment. Like, for example, now, Neil, I am having such a fantastic time talking to you in this present moment, doing this Instagram Live. And that's all that matters. I don't care what's going to happen in half an hour, an hour. I know I've got things to think about messages from people to ring them, but that's not my priority now. The priority is to engage with you in this live. That makes sense.
And I think as well, like I said, like listening to everything that you were saying there about fear, and obviously that book as well, like The Power of Now, and being still and being in that moment. And I think one thing I would convey to people is that if you are going through a period where you're being overloaded with your thoughts, consider one thing: how much time are you investing on all of those negative thoughts?
Yes.
If you actually, you know, documented, you know, on a bit of paper, like how long you're spending in that negative thought zone and how many times you're thinking about this, thing like that, how much more time could you have invested in something that was positive, like you just said, sitting down and having a bit of quiet space, taking those deep breathing exercises, just being still in a moment and actually just feeling that oxygen and allowing yourself to be still.
Yes.
Because when you think about it, your thoughts are not real.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If we're not careful, we can develop an identity from the thoughts. Yeah. And that's why you're absolutely right in everything that you've said there. The thoughts are so powerful. I mean, Eckhart Tolle talks about power of thoughts, and we've got to really be mindful about them. And just for me personally, you know, when I was going through significant change in my own personal life with a midlife, and then I had a divorce, is to be able, I went to a mindfulness meditation class in Wolverhampton, and I attended for about 3 months, every Wednesday, 1 hour. There were like a good group of 15, 20 people would come regularly, and we'd all do group meditation. I cannot begin to tell you how powerful that was. And I was someone, Neil, I would never ever have thought of doing meditation or mindfulness thinking ever in my life. You know, I was one of these like 2.4 people, career, ego, car, house, you know, and it soon brought me crashing down to the very essence of who I actually really am meant to be. And the mindfulness helped me to achieve that. That helped me to cope with the change that was going to come in my life. If it wasn't for mindfulness and meditation, I don't think I would have easily have gone through the midlife. It really did help. I was tracking every moment. I was rationalizing every thought. I was swishing away the negatives. And if it, you know, with divorces, etc., they end up in court and you have mediation, all sorts of, and I wasn't even thinking about the first appointment, the resolution meeting. I didn't even, you know, it wasn't here. So all I wanted to deal with was here and now. And that helped me no end. Yeah. But it's quite common, if we are not taught these strategies in our earlier life, or from school, or from families, or from, you know, other significant others, if we're not taught this resilient strategies, way of coping with change, it can be extremely frightening. It can be very frightening that people then make steps that they regret and has consequences. Okay, so it's about, you know, stopping yourself in your tracks. You mentioned breath as well. I find that if I do get slightly anxious, I just get still and I establish a regular breathing pattern, because when you start breathing and you're conscious of your breathing, you are forcing yourself to be in the present, because what you are just doing is breathing. You're not worrying about the past, future, anything. And breathing regularly really helps me, you know, as a human being, as a person, to be able to kind of, because I had to take a lot of deep breaths 8 weeks ago when my son had to sit me down. I said, what? I had to, right. Yes, Dad, you should breathe. He was my life coach. It was hilarious, you know, and it was just so funny. Funny humor between father and son, but obviously not funny with the situation. But it was just, when you think back, thinking, oh my God, you know, I'm meant to be a life coach and I need coaching. And it was kind of weird, but I had to quickly adapt, you know, like the rest of us had to as well.
But then as well, though, isn't it? Like you know, you just made that big point that, hey, I'm a life coach, I should be able to cope with this. But then I think sometimes as well, you just made a big point there that actually, do you know what? We're all human. You know,
we are.
Well,
absolutely.
I'm not here today to say that I've lived a perfect life, because I sure as hell haven't. You know, like I said, I've lived a life where I've had to grow, and I've had to grow through experiences. There's parts of me I wish I could go back to and say, do you know what? Come on, what are you doing? But all I do know is that I try to live a life that's very simplistic. You know, it's simple.
Absolutely.
If the change is going to happen, okay, that's fine. But let's get things back to being simplistic. I don't want a life where everything's coming at me at 100 miles an hour, because that to me is not change. That's just chaos.
Yes.
But if I can rationalize things and put it into a box, and I can just move forward at a pace, I can then work through that change. And I think, you know, in terms of the topic that we're sort of talking about today, I mean, for me, it's just, I think it just comes down to one thing. I think, you know, that we're all still here.
Yes, we are right now.
and we're all experiencing change. But from that change, you know, if you think in 1 year's time or 10 years time that you're asked, well, what was you doing on that lockdown? You know, you would look back on it and you'll think,
right.
oh, I was doing that. You know, how did you cope with
it? That's right. Sometimes I wish maybe the future couldn't come quick enough, really. We need to be out of the situation, but we're not. We have to stay in it. No, that is absolutely a fair point, my friend. Honestly, that is absolutely, bang on there. You mentioned chaos. It's quite interesting. Is, when sometimes, my life is very simple now. It's a very simple life, and I find that I am able to cope better with change in a more simpler life, a simpler lifestyle. But when your life is very hectic and there's chaos, whether you have created the chaos or the chaos has been thrusted upon to you, either way, there's chaos that you are stepping in each and every moment of each and every day. Therefore, naturally, you are going to struggle to get out of that chaos. For you to be able to get out of it, for you to be able to come out the other end and change in a positive way. So if, for example, there are opportunities in the situation that we're still in a lockdown situation, we still have to observe lots of different rules, even though things are getting a little bit lighter with the social distancing, etc. But still, it's still a lockdown situation. We still have to, use the time now to start thinking and be mindful about how are we doing in terms of change? How would we rate ourselves? Because I believe that, the thing about the change in coronavirus is that it reminded me that I am still a student of change. Even though I went through huge change 5 years ago in my career, in my personal life, my living situation, relationship with my children, and everything, everything was, but then still, I thought I'd gone through it. 4 years on, I mean, this time last year, yes, I've succeeded in change. I've done it. Oh, no, you haven't, Sunil. No way, because this is a reminder. We are never gonna lose your registration as a student of change. And this is something that I've the last 8 weeks I've been forced as an enrolled on a course again of change, and I have to accept that. I have to accept it, and probably, you know, moving forward, helping myself, my family, helping clients, helping my friends, my colleagues through this together. You know, it's going to be a challenge, but we all have to be open-minded to change now. We all have to. We cannot be unenrolled from this course. It's a course that we all have to go, and if we can learn together, the better. One thing I wanted to mention, Neil, was this morning I was invited by a law firm based in the Midlands. Okay. They invited me because I was networking with some of the staff there through LinkedIn, and they have a panel of 4, a quorum, and they wanted someone to talk about mental health of employees, particularly how they can manage the change from going out of from going from remote working to stepping into the workplace physically. And it's a massive topic. It's massive. I mean, I had a few minutes to say a few things, and I think one key thing I mentioned was about we all have to manage our expectations. Employers have to. I know that they want their staff to perform to their optimum, and so the staff want to give their best as well. But the situation is such that it's all about nice and easy adjustment and part of a plan to get people to cope with all the changes. And one key thing that is going all the way through is mental health. That everyone has to be really aware of mental health in all of this, because when you're in self-isolation and quarantine, it can engender lots of feelings of sadness and being upset and anger. And also if people have gone through quite radical changes in their own, if they're themselves if they contracted the virus, or if their friends and family have, or worse still, they may have perished as a result of the virus. That's huge for that employee to bring with them to the workplace, and for the manager to be aware of that and how they can manage that together as part of the transition. So it's a big, massive topic, and I think we're all going to be learning a lot more about mental health issues in the workplace, in our personal lives, in our relationships, in our friendships. And the more open we are about this, the better for change. Sometimes I find that the older you get, sometimes we can be more resistant, because I noticed that in my 40s, that's it. I thought, that's it. I'm just going to be doing this. But then again, the midlife happened, and that's it. And here I am now. So we all have to be open to changes in the future and learn.
And I think
more adaptable.
And I think for me as well, like I'm just sort of weary at the time that we're sort of talking. But I think for me, when I consider sort of like change and the message that I want to sort of say to people is that every day is a change. You know, like tomorrow is a change. You know, a week on Sunday is going to be change. You know, every day, you know, every year we're changing in our bodies. We're getting older. You know, we might get an injury, you know, but you have to adapt to that change. And I think for me, I suffer with shin splints when I go running, so I don't tend to go running as much. But now what I've been doing is I've come to the agreement. Well, okay, if I can manage just a shorter distance and do that repetitively over 1 week, I've adapted to the change. So I'm still keeping fit. Okay, but also as well is I think I listened or read somewhere that the average lifespan, I think, for a male or female is something like 70 years old. I heard it somewhere.
That's about right.
When you think about that, well, I'm 41, so that gives me roughly 30 years. I haven't got time to keep resisting change in order to move forward and to achieve what you need to achieve.
That's a very good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, that's bang on. That's spot on point.
You know, you have to be fluid. If you're looking to change anything in terms of your well-being, in terms of your relationship status, and whether it's job, whether it's you want to start a business, the most important message, and I'm not sort of saying, you know, but you have to do it.
Yeah,
you have to
absolutely. Time is running out.
You can't afford to sit on that fence and keep saying to yourself, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow." No, do it, because you don't know what's behind that curtain or that door or that bridge once you cross it. But if you can embrace it and just say to yourself, do you know what? Well, I'm changing, because you are physically changing every day. I'm losing my hair. There's nothing I can do about it, but what I can do is grow with it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely right. When I started to lose mine, I thought, just get rid of it all. I know I have the best hairstyle in the world, don't I, Neil? So I just thought, just let it go, let it go. It's one of those things.
But you just said it there, haven't you? You just said that there about one thing that you couldn't control. You just let it go.
You just let it go. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And that sometimes can be hard to do, to let go of situations, things that, you know, made us feel comfortable, but they're not gonna serve us here and now. But you're absolutely spot on when you talk about the amount of time that is left, because yes, the average is around 70-ish. They're saying it's getting longer in terms of the sort of, you know, is it called age span? What do you call it?
Lifespan?
Length of time, length of age. I think there's a longevity. Longevity, yeah, is a sense that, you know, it's getting longer now in terms of we're living a bit longer, basically. But then again, you're absolutely right. When I think about it, then I've probably got about 20 odd years left of this life. But then I'm thinking back as well, when you said that, my God, I remember clearly what I was doing 20 years ago. And it just felt like yesterday, which was what? The year 2000. My God, it was a millennium year. I remember clearly what I was doing, what I was teaching, where I was working. I know exactly what's happening with my family situation, with my friends. So it just seemed like yesterday. I'm thinking, oh my God, that time is gone. So I've really got to make sure I make the most of the next 20, whatever years I've got left on this planet. Could be a lot less, could be a lot more. And and this is where the power of now is so powerful. Is if you ignored the moments that have just passed you by, don't ignore them anymore. Use it as an opportunity to make the most of your life right here and now, and accept what's happened and do something positive about it. And if you can't do it yourself, then you need to ask for help. And there's no shame in asking for help. It's actually a strength. Being vulnerable is a strength. It really is, especially for men. I'm sorry, guys, I have to say this. You know, I know we want to come across as being macho and unbeatable. I'm sorry, we are all merely human beings, and we go through things. And if we can be alert to the possibility of things going wrong right now, then we can start doing something towards it and being. I tend to be quite proactive, Neil, in my life. I have been, particularly the last 5 years. But you know what? This pandemic is another message. The message is learn about being more proactive now. So you know, you adapt. So you building up your reserves for coping with the change when it happens. For example, you know, how prepared are we for a second wave if it happens? I'm preparing for it now, because I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to reach out for the mask. I'm going to be, you know, doing what I'm doing now to safeguard myself. And I'm not going to be totally open to being, even if we are completely out of restrictions, I'm not going to just be out there freely as I was before. You know, I'm going to be really, really mindful. I may never use trains and buses and trams ever again, or for a long time, until maybe a vaccine comes. I may just restrict my outdoor visits, you know, if I'm, you know, back to work in colleges and schools, doing my freelancing, and be very, very mindful. And also, I want to make sure that for me to adapt to the change, I just need to make sure that the places I'm going to, they're conforming to the new government guidelines on making your workplaces and workstations COVID-19 secure. You know, because it's a matter of life and death. You know, I don't want to reduce the 20 years I may have left on this planet. I want to still be here. I want everyone to be here as long as we possibly can to enjoy this life. It's here to be enjoyed as well as to be endured. It's here to be enjoyed as well.
Exactly. Like I said, it's like a bit of fruit, isn't it? Well, it's like no, it's not a bit of fruit. It's like an onion. You just got to keep peeling the layers off. And eventually you're going to get there. You're going to get there.
It certainly is. Absolutely. So change is the way forward. We're going to change. Constant change is the constant, Neil, my friend. No, that's it. Thank you so much for inviting me on this live. It's been amazing. And I look forward to the next topic we're going to be discussing, because I know that you'll have something brilliant up your sleeve.
Yeah, I think, well, like I said, obviously, I think we've had a couple of people come in today, but I would just like to say that anyone that wants to watch this, and I hope they enjoy it, and yeah, look out for Loose Men again next week.
Yes, we'll be back next week.
There we
Take
go.
care, Neil. Speak soon. Okay. Take care. Take care. Bye.